live again for another episode of the Puppet Podcast. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you on the streaming world of Facebook and YouTube and all of those good social media. Thank you for joining. Feel free to chat with us during the live. That's what is good with those live interviewed. You can ask questions during the interview. You can say hi, where you're watching, and we can so that we are connected from all over the world because we have some guests from the other side, the other continent. And that's why we do this interview in the afternoon for the American, but over there it's almost the evening. So let's connect. And I want to, at the end, I would show you the web series and all of that. So please welcome in the screen, Mr. Cieri.
Hello.
I like to make it really.
That's
ta-da.
good. That's a nice big. Yeah, that's a big entrance. I like that.
Yeah, and you receive us in kind of in a funny environment because it's also the name of your show, Sam. You do your show called "It Lives in My Closet." So,
and this kind of looks like a closet. I'm working. I work taking care of my little brother, and so I'm in my mom's room, and my mom has so much stuff.
That's like my closet too.
It's all over and there is a closet. There's two closets, and still, but that's
woman
okay.
loves clothes, so
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm really happy to receive you because you have this wonderful web series. I really admire all your work, and I also discover you that you get the crush for puppetry. So I want to know a bit more, and for the people who are watching, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes,
as a new puppeteer.
Yes. So hi, my name my name is Sam, and puppeteering was never something. It was always something that I appreciated, but never something that I would ever think that I would be a part of. And I never really understood or respected in the way that I now see that it deserves the art of it. Other than like as a passive person, that's just like, oh, that's really cool, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that so the company that I run with my two friends, John Hayes and Nissa Grant, we run a production company called OutaLine Productions, and we do music videos and short films. And our plan this summer, and we had spent the past year setting up this plan to do a feature-length film. That was the plan. We had a script, we had readings, we had all this. The world ended and so that got put on hold indefinitely. And we all went into quarantine. I live in New York City. We all live in New York City. So we were in quarantine, and I had all this. I don't do very well sitting. I'm somebody that I have to be making something. And I was making this movie, and then it got taken away. So I'm like, okay, I have to make something else.
Yeah.
And I'm by myself, so I have to make something alone. And I didn't just want it to be my face because I would get so annoyed by myself. And the original idea was, I was like, I'm gonna get a puppet and let's see, maybe that's what I do. I could be terrible at this and like have no idea. So the original idea for It Lives in My Closet was to do a short film about a neighbor who was like Eastern European, like hyper positive kind of neighbor fun puppet, and be very on the nose with it and very Muppety, and you know. So I went out looking for, because I had no idea how to build a puppet, and I was like, that's a whole thing. Yeah. So I'm gonna find someone that does really good work, and I'm just gonna grab a puppet, like a basic model. And so I reached out to Stephen Barkley, who is Diablo Puppets, and I think you've talked to people that have represented them before.
Yeah,
and he's dope. He's just like the coolest dude. And I ordered this gray little puppet, And the minute I got him, he had clothes on. I took all the clothes off, and I just kind of looked at it for a while. And I was like, okay, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea how do I move the hand, and like I started going like this, and like he was and I started watching other people puppeteer, and then I was like, before I do anything, I'm going to read everything I can about Jim Henson. So I went out and I read biographies. I watched documentaries. I was like, I'm going to learn everything about the person that very much is the architect of modern puppetry. How, when you say puppet,
Yeah, he is a big influence.
Yeah, today think of that, the mass majority of people. So I knew I had to learn everything I could about him and his philosophy on puppetry. Why did it work? How did it work? And then, so I'm learning all about puppetry, and I'm like, every night I'm sitting in front of the mirror and I'm exercising and I'm trying to, you know, I'm trying to match things up. I'm like lip syncing songs to myself, but I have no idea who this character is. I'm just trying to technically learn what's happening, right?
Yeah. That's the way.
This is in a span of a couple weeks that I'm learning all of this. And as this happens, I'm also trying to think like I'm writing out the short film, and it's very funny and it's very light. And then things happen politically and socially. George Floyd gets shot. I'm in New York City, and there are protests in the street, and the world takes this turn of nothing new. Like there was nothing new that was explained, you know. It was a very, for the first time in my life, and I think in a lot of people's lives, we couldn't avoid, you know, like we usually do. We usually look beyond it. We're like, that's something happening over there.
Yeah, but it was in the face. Yeah.
We couldn't go anywhere, right? So you had to face things. And when I looked at it and I looked at everything happening, there is this instant thing that you're like, oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. Oh, that's wrong. And you start looking more and more at the world, because we have the time to do that, which is such a rare thing. And then I started having conversations with friends and people I know that didn't have that instant, that's wrong. That's, you know, and we started having disagreements. And I felt like something, so
you talk in terms of the politics scenes, or more like the fact
politics and the social and politics. I think it's very intertwining right now. And it's just a general idea of morality.
Yeah,
right?
What is wrong and what is right. Like
the simple stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So then I was, as I'm like trying to comprehend all the things happening in the world, and the fact that people don't seem to just see the obvious thing, I start thinking about things like Sesame Street, like these kids shows that we grow up with, and that we, for some reason, and I don't know why, but some reason around 10 or 11 years old, we go, oh, did it. I learned, right? We go like, I learned what's right. I learned what's wrong. I'm now going to consume other forms of entertainment and media, and I don't need to be told or taught anything or reminded anything, right?
Yeah.
But the thing I like to compare it to is that I learned algebra in school.
Yes.
But if you told me to solve an algebraic math equation, I would have no fucking idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would have no idea how to do that.
Yes.
Right? I would need to take a refresher course.
Totally.
So the idea came up. I was like, okay, well, it's not going to be a short film, because I have a lot of things that I would like to talk about.
Cover.
And so I was like, it's going to be a series, and it's going to be a refresher course of morality, of just going over the basics, right? And it's going to be for adults, but not an adult show, which I think is, and we'll get into this. I think we were saying that we'll talk more about like where puppetry is today, but doing something that has a puppet in it that is for adults, but isn't crass, that isn't it's very earnest.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I enjoy. Like you send me the clip, and I totally hook to it. I think it's really, and for the one who were watching, if you haven't seen, take the time after that to watch, and you will be like really addict. I was like, I want to see another one, and I want, because as you said, it's the basic, and it's so like I feel your like the tone, the vibe of
Mhm.
it is really what's happening in the world. Like how I can refer to this character, I can saw, and we identify a lot
Yeah.
of people that we maybe saw, maybe us at some point. Sometimes we have this kind of mood that the character have. So
And
it's
that's
really interesting.
when I was I kind of came up with that's what the premise of the show. I was like, okay, so who's my character? And I was like, I'm gonna represent um basically a straight white guy who, and that perspective. So assuming I know everything, being freaked out by, like, um in the first episode, spoilers, but in the first episode we kind of meet Bobby, who's my character, and at the end of the episode he finds this little monster in his closet, and at the beginning of the second episode the first thing he does is he calls the police. That's the first thing he does. And the second thing he does is he accidentally, like, I mean, because he's freaked out, he shoots him with a little Nerf gun, right? That doesn't mean a lot. Like when you watch it, it's funny and it's cute and there's something like silly about it. But that's a white person being freaked out by something and calling the police and resorting to violence before ever having a before ever talking, right?
Yes.
And so that's the kind of stuff that I knew the show had to be. And then I was trying to figure out Phil, because at this point I'd started learning
The
and
character.
falling in love with it was his eye. There's something about his eyes. And actually, this is a funny thing. I have a couple Phils.
Oh yeah.
I have a couple of them. And they the eye placement is not the same on all of them. And there's one Phil in particular, the main Phil, that has the way his eyes are set. And I think it's because it's a very clear eye line, right? And that's so important. It's
Yes.
a very clear eye line, and they're just very well aligned. And he has this wide-eyed, like he's always set with kind of like a smile, right? He always has this kind of like thing of some, you know,
Yeah.
that thing when someone listens to you and they're like, like, I get it. Yeah.
They understand, they welcome the whatever
Open,
you're saying.
very open.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
that's magic in puppetry when you find this character,
yeah,
and you can have a lot of message, as you said,
yeah.
into that. That's amazing. That's such a good intro to it's kind of, I feel people will want to see the show more and more. But I want to know
I hope
you,
so.
because also your way through puppetry, you were a singer, actor, and you just, what is your background? Because I always ask the best path. What's the best way to arrive into puppetry? So what's yours?
Mine, I am somebody, I like making things in general, and like I said before, I have to.
Yeah.
I grew up, and I think this is a part of it. I'm from Florida, and when I was 11, we moved to a town called Celebration, and it's 4 minutes from Disney. So I grew up in Disney, and the town itself was built by Disney. So I grew up in Disney World. Like I used to get out of school and go to Disney all day. And that was like, we would cut class and go to Epcot or Magic Kingdom. Like that was, there's an inherent, so what that happens is when you're growing up and you grow up in a complete dream land, you know. And I had growing up, I had a lot of issues with being bullied and being beaten up, and that was a constant. So I was a very big escape. Like I've always been someone that's been drawn to escape, and you know, creatures like Star Wars. I'm the biggest Star Wars fanatic, and I've always been obsessed with things. I have no interest in the world as it is, right? In things I create. I'm not interested in reality whatsoever, because that's not where I grew. I didn't grow up in reality, even though I dealt with realistic things. I grew up in a complete fantasy world. So I became a music. I mean, I've always been a musician, but I left high school when I was 17 to be a rock star, you know. And I played piano in Las Vegas. I was all up and down Florida. I was a musician. I moved to New York when I was 20 years old. And for 3 years, the only job I had was I played music down in the subways. I did that for 3 years. I made a record. Nothing happened. It was very disheartening and disillusioning. And I had only wanted to be a musician at that point. I tried writing once. I wrote one chapter of a book. I was like, I'm going to be a writer. I wrote one chapter of a book, and a friend of mine read it and said, "You're not a good writer." And so I stopped writing. I was like, I'm never going to write anything narrative again. So I made this record. Nothing happened. So I stopped being a musician. And I was like, I'm going to sell motorcycles for the rest of my life. So I started selling motorcycles out of Brooklyn. And then I was terrible at selling motorcycles, by the way, because I would always have a different story of my life to sell this specific motorcycle. To everyone that came into that shop, I owned every motorcycle. Whenever they're like, what do you think about this one? I'm like, well, I actually have one. Let me tell you about it. And I would make up all these stories, you know, and I didn't sell a lot. I really didn't, because I ended up talking so much to the people. They were like, we just want to buy a thing. Why could just stop? And I'm like, all right, but this one time I was in a mountain. And so I got into a really bad motorcycle accident, though. When I was like 20, 21. No. Sorry, I was 23. I was 23. I got hit by a cab. My hand, my thumb, like split and broke, and I couldn't walk for a month. And I lost my job because of it. Like, I couldn't sell motorcycles because I looked like a human cast. So I had to find a way to make money. And acting was actually, which is such an ironic thing. Nobody goes into acting because they're like, that's a surefire financial success, is start acting. But a friend of mine was like, hey, have you ever thought about doing musical theater? And I did a little bit in high school, but never really thought of it as a career beyond that. And I went on one audition, and it was the first audition I did. And it was for a show called Rock of Ages. And I got the part. And I did a 7-month run on a cruise line in Rock of Ages, going to Bermuda for 7 months. And it was great. And I jumped off of that tour. I went on to a Broadway tour right after that of a show called Once. And that's where I met John and Nissa and my girlfriend, Mackenzie. Like, I've some incredible people in my life I've met from that tour. And I came out of that tour kind of finding music again and loving music again. And I was doing a lot, and there was a lot of promise for me as an actor in musical theater. Like, I was getting work, and I was working. I was like being asked to do a bunch of readings for these interesting shows and bigger opportunities. And I was doing a show called $1 Million Quartet. And that's where I met two people that are I think very important with this current show and with a lot of stuff that I do now. One is Noel Carey, and Noel he like loved Jim Henson and he would make these incredible like puppets, and he thought puppets were so cool, and I had never thought anything about puppets. But I knew that Noel was a genius and was this incredible creative person, and if he said there's something about these puppets, I should probably take notice. And so he started that, and then Michael Sickberg, who Sick Fantasy, he does all my concept art. So like, we're creating more characters for the show right now, and Mike is in charge of drawing everything. And definitely helps. Like, I send him every episode, and I'm like, hey, you need to watch this. So, yes. Oh no, my dear, you cannot. I love you. You can't, my niece.
Oh.
No. Okay, come in for 1 second and say hi.
Yeah, we have people watching from Philippines.
Come in 1 second.
And people,
Or not. Or
not. Maybe she knows she will be on television.
Yeah, right. Oh.
Hello.
Hello, creepy. Why are you just standing in the doorway? How can I help you? Oh, I gotta. I'm doing this. Violet. Say hi to the. Hello. Oh, you gotta ask your mama. I'm so sorry. I love you. Go ask your mama. I love you. Bye.
That's the live thing.
So there you go. So I do the show, and I'm doing this $1 million quartet show with these two people that become very important in my life. And we were doing one performance, and I was standing on stage, and I had this really big moment. I was like, I'm not supposed to be doing this. And I was like, I don't love this. I don't love this as much as I love. Like, there was something in saying other people's words and living in other people's worlds, which as an actor, if you love doing that, if you love just acting and being a part of something, that's amazing. And I felt like I was taking up somebody's space by being there, you know? So I decided that I wasn't going to act in theater anymore, and I was going to start creating my own work. And that's where I have a band called Nicotine Dolls, and that's all my like music, like just music stuff. And then I love film. I love making movies. I love creating things visually. And so we made OutaLine Productions, and ... This is where.
Here we are with puppetry.
Here we are with puppetry.
That's amazing. That's such a good story, and I feel you're a great storyteller also to get into all of those paths to puppetry.
That is my family. My family is very good at that.
Yeah, and I think it's part of the job to be good storyteller and using puppets and visual aspect, because a lot of puppeteer comes from cinema. So I can observe that we have a totally different background, but we have great way to explain the life and communicate our sensibility.
Yes.
So I want to know your big purpose for the future. It's always a tricky question to ask, but what is your vision with this show or with your own career?
Specifically with this show, I have a very so the idea was to do something kind of impossible, in that I was like, I'm going to so when you watch the show, the first 3 episodes, and there are episodes sprinkled in where I am completely by myself. Like, I was doing camera, I was running the microphone, I edited it, I did the music to it, I did the coloring, I did every aspect of it. There was no one else in the room while I'm making these, right? And so the episode 8 I just put up is a 20-minute episode, and I'm the only human being that is involved in making that episode.
Because the quarantine aspect.
In quarantine, yeah. And then I'm very lucky when I started bringing in these other people. So a big part of the show too is that I bring in other people, and other writers and other voices, because something that I think, because I'm a white straight guy, I can't articulate everyone's experience. That's impossible, and it's also stale. You know, we live in a world that is very much built up around narratives put out by straight white guys, unfortunately, and that has created stale narratives and predictable narratives and predictable things that we consume, and then we ourselves become just these like amalgamations of the past 20 years of straight white guys. So the idea was, I'm gonna bring in people that I respect, that have specific voices, that have specific stories to tell, that I think are very talented too. So the first person I bring in is my older brother, my older brother Danny, who plays my older brother in the 4th episode. And I love that aspect of it. And then I also have John and Nissa have been able to come in, and now they're able to help. John and Nissa are also the 2 people in the 1st episode that I spent time with.
That's so cool.
And now we just put out episode 8, but we are filming a future episode, and it's all black and white. It's silent, and it's with a character that a friend of mine, Esco, has created, and it's a character they call One, and it represents their lack of voice. And so we've created this kind of like 1920s, 30s silent black and white episode. And that's the thing too, is that each episode, the more you watch the show, I really hope people start to see that we are pushing our storytelling a little bit further, and a little bit making things a little more abstract. Like we did an episode, our first 20-minute episode was I had this idea about that in my mind sounded easily offensive, a tap dancing homeless person. And I thought of that. I was like, that sounds awful. That sounds very like exploitive and like it, but there is something in somebody that has, because most of the time if someone is living without a home and on the street, most of the time there's a very real reason that they are there, whether it be mental health or a system that is incapable of supporting them when they should. And so I wanted to write a character that, because of their mental health, because of reasons beyond just you can fix your own situation, they're in this situation, but they're bursting at the seams to create and express. And because I think we all want to make things that are beautiful constantly.
Yeah.
We all want to. Just some of
the
us
purpose.
don't have that ability at our fingertips. So I thought, take the idea of money and then subvert it into, it's really not, the episode starts with like Phil has to get a job because he has to make money. But by the end of it, that's not what it's about at all. It's very much about like, we should pay more attention to the people that we find invisible around us. And there's a 4-minute, I knew going into it, I was like, there's going to be this long abstract tap number that we will take 100% seriously. That's why Hannah Heller, who plays plays Mike, we worked for a couple weeks, and the biggest thing that I love about her is that she is not your typical tap dancer. She's very human. She has a very human quality. So the piece itself came out like, there's a full page, like all the scripts, I write all the scripts out for these episodes, even when it's just me, like they're very much scripts. And there was a full page treatment for that tap number where I wrote out Mike's life story, like from birth to where she is now, her whole life story, and then gave it to Hannah. I was like, okay, we're going to film this in this theater and we're going to try and follow this narrative, but maybe that's not what someone gets when they watch it, right? And so experimental filmmaking on top of a children's show that talks about morality with a puppet is such an interesting place to be, and something I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And to answer your question, we take Phil, I take Phil very seriously as a character. Like, I don't treat him like a puppet. And that's also with how he's operated.
Yeah.
I tend to avoid big movements in him because he looks like he's very much built Muppety. And I think when working him, the biggest thing to avoid is big Muppety movements. You know, like when he walks, I do have to do the shoulder thing when he walks. I try to keep the movement as subtle as possible. When he's looking at you, the movements are just tiny little movements, you know, nothing too big. And the biggest thing is eye line. That's like, I make sure that he is looking exactly where he needs to look. And it's a performance. Like I sit with him and I'll sit for like an hour or two on one scene, just holding him there until he is able to express what I know he's trying to express, because it does become this, you end up directing from the monitor,
Yes,
you're
totally.
watching from the monitor and you're trying to get a very subtle, real performance. Like if there are points in it where you go, haha, puppet, to me, that's a failure on my part, because whenever you watch great puppetry, I think you never are aware. And it's like great
Yeah.
acting. Great acting should not have you walking out going, wow, what great acting. You
Yeah,
should
and
be talking about the character.
yeah, to
You
see
know,
the character in his life and how he
what a great
breathes and
character. Yeah.
yeah.
And so the story of Phil, we have this like basic 70s sitcom, and this is the growth of the show. This is where the show is going. I have the second season mapped out, right? The idea was always to do a 15 episode. So there's going to be 15 episodes of this season.
Oh yeah.
And when we end this season, we're going to meet more characters, because what we know of Phil right now is that he's very old, even though he's very young. He if you watch episode 6, he talks about and we sprinkle it throughout the season. We sprinkle little hints of the lore of Phil, and there is a whole, like, he's from somewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't know yet, but we will discover
And we
it.
don't know yet where he's from. Why is he here? Phil is, the thing I really wanted to do was I wanted to capture we have a really good thing when we're young. We can see things so clearly of like, that's right, that's wrong. I'm just gonna, and we have such empathy and compassion when we're young, but we can't articulate it, right? And then when we become old enough where we can articulate these complex ideas, we are not so clear in that goodness, right?
We lose it.
We've been affected by, and we are cynical.
Yeah.
So Phil balances that. He's old enough to articulate, but has this innocence in him that he sees things very clearly.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that he is an old character, and people, I will show you some part of the episode, so stay tuned to watch it. But I thought he was a young, like a baby, but it's maybe the closet and all the symbols that you bring into the show.
And it's his voice too. Like I Phil's voice, and I do this. So I do with each episode. I also do something called Behind the Door, where I sit and I kind of talk through the making of that episode. And I did talk at one of the but the biggest thing was I was like trying to figure out what his voice was, right?
That's
and it's a big one. And I was walking to work one day and I started thinking about, I'm like, what kind of energy should he have? And I love Back to the Future. I love Back to the Future. And I was like, oh, well, Michael J. Fox. He should sound like Michael J. Fox. But like Michael J. Fox has this like great broken quality to his voice where he's like, you gotta tell me. Like he has this.
Yeah.
So I took Michael J. Fox and then I saw like he has this kind of Phil has this childlikeness. So I was like, so then take Michael J. Fox up an octave, and then you have this kind of like wow, that's crazy. And then like it's also cool because he can be kind of there's like this kind of like whisper thing that he can do, and it's really cool. And it has this like it's he's able to
old and
he's old but young at the same time.
Wow, that's such an interesting process to find a voice. It's so cool. And I want to hear you about the future of puppetry, because it's also my conclusion. And we have also Puppeteer Wars, like they were watching from Philippines and Argentina over there. So thank you, people, to comment and watch.
You guys for watching.
So yeah, let's have a thought about the future of our art.
I think I'm obviously relatively new. I've been immersing myself as much as I can in the community. and
and I
researching.
have to add that it's fine, and the community is well open, and we are not sectarian. We open
No.
to every culture, everyone.
I think there's a difference between how things are and what's popular, you know?
Yeah.
I think what we have to do, this community relies very heavily on one or two very successful puppeteers, you know? I think relying too heavily on the children aspect, while also like dirty puppets. I think we saw that they tried to do like a adult puppet movie. I don't know if you saw the.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for me, that doesn't work because then you're so obviously pointing at like, isn't this silly? While I don't think that's the point. It should be taken as seriously as we take animation.
Yeah.
The art of animation is completely, the second you see something drawn, you go, okay, so we're not in the real world. Okay, great. I already buy that. Right? So the second you see a puppet, you're already going, okay, great. We don't exist. We're not in a real place. I don't need it to walk around and flap around. For me, if you're doing a Muppet thing, the Muppets already exist, you know? Trying to find real stories and real human qualities in these puppets and giving them the ability that we have given animated characters to express real stuff. Because people expressing people things, though it is like it's obviously moving, there's a limit to it. But a completely
out of the world
something that isn't real, expressing human things,
it's make us backseat towards the behavior and just have a philosophical thought on it.
And I think the taking it completely seriously while also understanding its absurdity, you have to balance both, right? These are they're tools. I mean, puppets are tools, just like anything, like a guitar, like anything, like a hammer. It's the same thing, you know? I think relying heavily on a puppet, I'd love to see more writers and more care taken with the stories that the puppets are telling. That's not something I'm seeing a lot of. And seeing people really like give respect, like let them bring great stories to life. I mean, that's my thing. I am a story fanatic. I'm not a religious person, but my religion is storytelling. Like it's the most important thing. And if at the end of the day, if you put on a show or you make a short or you make a movie and you are making a movie about the thing that's supposed to convey the story, you know, that's like if you make a movie about building a house and by the end of it, the movie was about a screwdriver, that's not interesting. I want to see how did the screwdriver put the screw in the wood and what was the process it took and how it's hard to make a house and with the struggle, you know, and the building of something rather than the thing that's building it. So I think that's a very long about way to say, but that's my idea of where we are today.
Yeah, and totally, I totally agree. We want to see more writer through puppetry, but to story. And I think a lot of key things are in the writing of stories. And all together as a team, as puppet is a teamwork often, or could be also by yourself. And we need
suggesting that puppeteers, like I'm a writer that became a puppeteer. I would love to see puppeteers taking writing courses or writing things, even if it's not puppeteer related or puppetry related, writing, so then you can understand that this isn't just a funny haha. It's not a punchline, right?
Mhm.
There's a character in this. It
Yep, alive.
like Phil like he goes mer in a very specific way. It's a very specific thing because he is a character, and I know where he grew up. I know
Yeah.
what he believes in. I know what he doesn't believe in,
You
and
have
that
done
all
like all the
informs.
homework of an actor, basically,
Yeah.
as like all the homework about your character. You have
Mhm.
done it for the puppet, and I think you're right about like the future. I think if every puppeteers take their character more with like seriously is the word, but with more attention about who is this person I
Yeah.
manipulate, it will bring puppetry higher. That's
Yeah.
such an interesting like tip that you bring right there, because we get so much different viewpoint at the show, so it's really cool. And before we end, I want to just have a like little peek into one episode where we see
Yes.
that feel and how he expressed so well. So I will share with you this, just a second. I have it right there, and I will put play in this wonderful show, and after we will chat. Let's see.
Now I won't face them all on my own. 'Cause I got you. Oh, I got you.
Let's see. Oh no!
Oh no!
Lagging! No! Oh no! Lagging again! Okay, come on.
I talk about subtlety, and then he's doing this.
Better. Oh, in the closet.
A little closet.
Oh my God! Oh. Oh. So everyone, you will have to see the show. You will have to have a look on this. So you just put on Google, "It live in my closet," and you will find those yeah, those great episodes. It's so cool. I just want to smile.
Oh, what is it?
That's so cool. So I don't want to be a spoiler. I will stop the share. Wow, I love this. Yeah.
Oh, Carla Woods. She's fantastic in that
It's
episode.
so good. Yeah, we recognize New York.
Oh yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, so you're there. So I will cut this share screen here. Oh yeah. Yeah, so people, you will have to watch this, and you've done such a great job as an actor.
Thank you.
Also, it's such a good work. I saw many, like, as the podcast, we receive a lot of stuff, and you have this challenge, like quarantine set really well. So it's really cool to see those kind of quality happening also.
Well, thank you. Thank
on
you very
web.
much. Thank you for I mean, just finding you guys, I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I think things like this are very important in keeping the community. It's very much alive, but reassuring people that it exists is so important. You know, and reassuring, like what you're doing, in just reassuring people that like, hey, we're all here, we're all listening, and this community does exist around you. So let's
Yeah.
talk about it, and let's all bring our perspectives into this. So it's
Yes.
wonderful.
And it's international. Everyone's still working and think in terms of future, how we
Yep.
will create this puppetry world and get our
And it's
job.
wide open. It's
Yeah.
wide open, because I think something that needs to be said is the world exists beyond, in puppetry, the world exists beyond the Jim Henson Company. Like, we don't need to do what they do. And also, this is a good thing too, is that company hasn't done, like the Dark Crystal was the last fantastic thing that they did, and then they canceled it, and it was so good. Oh, hello. Yeah,
Hello.
that's my sister, everybody. That's my sister.
Yay. That's part of the show. We will conclude
Yes.
on those wonderful world word words, and thank you so much for all your stuff. So people, if they want to see, like, maybe you can say where they can find more of you and the series. You have some address to give to people?
Of course. So I would say YouTube is the best. We're building. It's still in such a the Phil group, the It Lives in My Closet group, is still pretty like growing, and the family is growing. So we're encouraging everybody to go subscribe and like and share. It Lives in My Closet on YouTube. We have Instagram, It Lives in My Closet. Our Facebook, It Lives in My Closet. OutaLineProductions.com is our production website. OutaLine Productions also has a Facebook and an Instagram, and we also do other, like, we do short films and stuff of other narratives, or other creatives that do things. And if you have work that you would love to explore with us, please feel free to reach out. Yeah, so thank you again for having me here and being able to talk about this show.
Yes, and it's the beginning. We will see more and
Yes.
more of your talent out there and in music and all of this. So thank you so much, Sam. Stay in the virtual studio.
Yes.
We will chat after this. So yeah, bye-bye.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yay! Boom! Disappear. It's so interesting, this live thing. You saw how it's happening, and it's in real time. So let's connect with all those wonderful puppeteers from US, from UK, from all over the world. So everyone, feel free also to subscribe to our Patreon. We give some tips about promotion, but also some workshop about puppetry if you want to learn more about this art form, or know some tools of different puppeteers, how they survive in this quarantine, how they keep doing show, or how they build, how they actually materialize their vision into a real puppet. So yeah, have a look. It's in the description, and join us on Spotify, on iTunes, on whatever you are watching or listening this show. And I'm really glad to see you every week. So we have another interview this evening. It's a big day for the Puppet Podcast. So join us this evening if you have the time, or watch the replay, and let's stay in touch as the big community that we are. So stay safe, everyone. I'm Caroline Bernier-Dionne, and I'm doing this podcast with all this passion. So have a great afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Bye.